Hopelessly lost in the remote wilderness, you struggle to survive as the elements close in and life slips away. Like a guardian angel, help arrives in the form of an individual that lends you aid and encourages you to push onward. Upon being rescued, however, you discover you were alone the entire time, with no sign of your mysterious companion. While walking down a dark trail, footsteps echo behind you, only to reveal a fleeting glimpse of what was following you dissolving into the shadows when you spin around. Still, others vanish entirely, taken by things that whisper in the darkness beyond the trees. What you can't see can hurt you, and these phenomena of the unseen.
Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together.
It was 1916 when Sir Ernest Shackleton launched his famed expedition into the Antarctic. With their ship, the Endurance, crushed by ice, the Explorer and two of his crew were forced to travel across the frozen mountainous interior of the uncharted South Georgia Island for 36 hours after evacuating on their lifeboat. Though the men managed to reach a whaling station, Shackleton would later write in his book, titled South, "It seemed to me often that we were 4, not 3. I said nothing to my companions on the point, but afterwards Worsley said to me, 'Boss, I had a curious feeling on the march that there was another person with us.'" This would be the first documented case of what would become known as third man syndrome. Essentially, it is an instance of an unknown party being felt or seen during times of extreme stress. The entity has been known to communicate directly by giving specific instructions or merely providing a sense of companionship to ward off hopelessness. Survivors of these situations often report being given directions or verbal encouragement by a disembodied voice or unknown individual. Years later, Frank Smythe and his partner, Eric Shipton, had set out to scale the north face of Mount Everest in 1933. Though Eric was forced to turn back due to illness, Frank continued onward, climbing the mountain and reaching the oxygen-depleted death zone. It was here that the climber became convinced he was not alone, claiming he felt another person tied to the rope behind him. Pulling out one of his mint cakes, Frank broke the food in half and turned to offer some to his unseen companion, only to discover no one was there, with his later diary entry reading, "The feeling was so strong that it completely eliminated all loneliness. I had a partner with me, looking after me, taking care of me." Interestingly, he also claims to have seen two slowly pulsating, bulbous objects in the sky above the ridge during his descent, with one having a squat pair of wings and the other a beak-like protuberance, in what would become among the first credible reports of UFOs. The sea can be a treacherous place, as a lone sailor found once his yacht capsized during a storm. It was here that a mysterious man appeared, conversing with him for an extended period of time, as he was trapped on the ship. Although he was unable to see the man's face as he sat beside him, the stranger gave him hope and determination to survive until he was later rescued. It was not until then that he discovered he had been alone the entire time. As a pilot in the 1990s, another future witness found himself overtaken by a snowstorm while flying over the Alaskan wilderness. Crashing his plane into a mountain, he was helplessly pinned within the wreckage. As he slowly succumbed to his injuries and hypothermia, a man wearing a blue jacket appeared outside the cockpit, urging him not to fall asleep. The stranger reached into the wreck, providing him with a sense of warmth and reassurance, eventually able to crawl from the plane. A rescue helicopter would later arrive, with the pilot telling the team to pick up the other man first, only to find that his were the only tracks in the snow. The attacks of September 11th, 2001 were a scene of horror and chaos. With the North Tower of the World Trade Center already hit, broker Ron DeFrancisco moved to evacuate the South Tower from his office on the 84th floor. Overcome by smoke and exhaustion from blocked hallways, he had collapsed when an unfamiliar voice called his name and urged him to continue. This was accompanied by the physical sensation of being lifted and guided to the stairs through the smoke. Insisting this was an act of divine intervention, DeFrancisco was not alone in experiencing something unexplained on 9/11, with other survivors reporting hearing whispers to keep moving or feeling a gentle push on their back to follow the right direction. As for the causes of third man syndrome, science often attributes it to vivid hallucinations brought on by oxygen hypoxia and adrenaline, causing the tempoparietal junction of the brain to misfire and result in the feeling of not being alone. Beyond neurological or evolutionary theories, there are those that insist it is a supernatural occurrence and are truly visitations from guardian angels, benevolent ghosts, or even something beyond human understanding. Rather than the chaos and desperation of survival scenarios, others experience paranormal activity on lonely roads or abandoned hallways. Footsteps echo from behind, separate from their own, and the feeling of being watched takes hold. Known by many names around the world, it is often referred to as simply the thing that walks behind. The Pacific Northwest of the United States has a heritage of industrial logging. It was here that lumberjacks of the 19th and 20th century told tales of the fearsome creature they called the hide-behind. Able to synchronize its movements in order to always be out of sight or behind trees, the hide-behind stalked lone prey. Thought to be nocturnal, the hide-behind was covered in black hair and had a tail resembling a French sheepdog, according to those that had caught a glimpse of it. Its attacks struck suddenly, leaving the victim gutted of their intestines and liver, the unexplained disappearances of lumberjacks often blamed on the creature. Not consigned to the past, modern hikers venturing into Appalachia or the Cascades have reported an eerie silence that settles over the area as something in the bush shadows their movements. Across the Pacific and into Asia, Japanese superstition speaks of the Bito-Bito-san. A far more benign entity, it is invisible and mimics the footsteps of those that it follows, wearing wooden clogs that cause its footfalls to echo ominously. Harmless, the spirit is often pictured as playful or protective, and may be banished by merely stepping aside and saying, "Bito-Bito-san, please go ahead." Similarly, the Inuit people of the Arctic share tales of the Teriaksuk, a half-human, half-caribou creature. It is thought to be invisible and cast only a shadow to reveal its presence on the bleak landscape. The Teriaksuk is believed to live in communities with others of its kind, with only the sounds of laughter, tools, and footsteps echoing through our world from theirs. Although their presence may be unnerving, this creature is thought to be indifferent to humans, if slightly mischievous at times. The same cannot be said of the Ijarak, however, a terrifying creature that was capable of shape-shifting, kidnapping children, causing travelers to become lost, and even stealing the memories of those that survived its attacks, making them forget the Ijarak's appearance. In any case, it was often impossible to perceive either creature directly. As early as the 1960s, witnesses around North America and as far as Australia, have spoken of a strange sighting that has become known as the Glimmer Man. Described as over 6 feet tall, the entity has no discernible features, since it apparently bends light around its body to create a shimmering, or rippling glass effect that causes it to be transparent, as if it were a glitch in reality itself. Rural areas, military test sites, fields, and forests are the most common areas it reportedly inhabits. Capable of agility and movements no human could match, the Glimmerman prefers to observe travelers from a distance, becoming still when observed directly, only moving in the periphery of a witness's vision. Eliciting a feeling of dread, it is typically silent, save for occasional clicking or grunting noises, either fleeing or vanishing when confronted. As for its origin, the Glimmerman has been suspected of being a cryptid, alien, military experiment, interdimensional traveler, or even a forest spirit as old as the woods themselves. From a scientific perspective, the thing that walks behind can be explained by a feeling of presence caused by the brain misfiring during an elevated state of threat detection. Unlike the third man originating from the frontal lobe's problem-solving abilities, the feeling of being stalked seems to be a manifestation of the amygdala's fear instinct. Nevertheless, dimly lit alleyways, wilderness trails, and desolate tundra continue to serve as an ominous setting for travelers, often finding themselves glancing over their shoulder, only to glimpse a fleeting shadow in the periphery of their vision. The night is cold and still, and the eerie quiet sounds carry far, and a shrill whistle pierces the darkness, a seemingly harmless activity of what is listening after the sun sets. Throughout the East Asian regions of Japan and Korea, superstitions claim that whistling in the dark not only attracts deadly serpents, but also demons and spirits of the dead. The sound is supposedly recognizable by these entities, and is seen as an invitation to follow someone home from their world. In the folklore of Malaysia, the forest spirit, known as the Hantu Sayul, will whistle back at hunters to lead them deeper into the jungle until they are lost and possibly become prey for other entities. The peoples of North America often hold whistling at night as taboo as well. Often, it is thought to attract the attention of malevolent spirits, with an Inuit belief claiming that the aurora borealis lights are the souls of the dead, and that whistling can entice them to carry the offender away to their realm. Other stories tell that whistling is used by Navajo skinwalkers to communicate, or by Salish stick Indians to disorient potential victims. Other times, entities can mimic voices to lure mortal prey, as in Appalachia, where visitors are warned not to answer if they hear their name being called from the woods. A particularly infamous case of disembodied voices occurred during the life of investigator and author Tom Marzenko. Starting at age 12, he would hear his name being called from the forest while playing outside near his home. Although the voices sounded familiar, even urgent, they seemed to carry a sinister sense of wrongness that caused him to flee back inside after several minutes. This experience would spark a curiosity that led him to investigate the phenomenon later in life, finding others around the world had heard both deceased and living relatives calling to them from the woods, experiencing an intense feeling of dread if they responded. Hikers were reportedly lured off trails by the voices of unseen family members or an infant's cries, only to find themselves lost or vanish inexplicably. Unlike the childlike cries of mountain lions, those who have heard their mother calling from somewhere she could not be know that not all mimics are corporeal creatures. Marzenko concluded though whatever was causing these was predatory in nature, using sounds and mimicking voices to lure prey. Echoing his efforts was veteran police detective David Paulides. After retiring, his long-running Missing 411 series took thousands of hours compiling unexplained mysteries. Although he never reached an official conclusion, his work seems to also imply an intelligence behind several disappearances, such as cryptids or alien abductions, or even interdimensional portals. From helpful companions that vanish to silent stalkers in the periphery, and voices that lure into the unknown, are a reminder that the unseen world may brush closer than we think. In isolation, when hope or fear peaks, does something listen and sometimes answer? The imaginary friend from your childhood may not be so imaginary.